Hi Tammy, it's Lisa, and I have your focus group file in front of me, and I have a couple of suggestions that I'm going to show you in this video. First, there's many different solutions. So, if you find somebody else who's taking the class, they may have set up their schedule in a slightly different way. I see you broke it out by session, and that's perfectly fine. And I'm going to go with that since that's the route you chose to take. So there's no one way to do it. There's just different interesting ways to set it up. And when people are done, I'm hoping that maybe people will share some of their ideas so you can see the variation. All right, so I'm going to go with this. First of all, the tasks should be in auto schedule mode, so I'm going to just highlight all of this and go to the task tab and put them in auto schedule mode. That's really important. The other thing, and let me undo to show you this. The other thing I noticed is you have the dates in here. You never want to put the dates in manually. You always want to let the dates happen automatically based on auto schedule, based on your durations, based on your predecessors. So, I might even clear out all these dates, which I've just done. And of course, the initial start date would be set, which I think you did back here under project information. Okay, but to get those dates to show up, again, you're on your way. You want the tasks, you want the durations, eventually you'll want the predecessors, but you also want those tasks in auto schedule mode. So here again, I'm going to highlight them, go to task, auto schedule, and boom, the dates will start to come in. Now everything of course is starting on Monday the 23rd, but that's just because you don't have predecessors yet in the predecessor column. We'll get to that in just a second. Okay, now I want to take a look at the resources. So I'm going to come over here to the resource sheet, and it looks like you have participants and you have them as a material. I would argue that participants are either maybe a work resource, although since you're really just paying this big flat rate, we assume we're going to have 10 participants, they each get $50, that's $500 per session. Here's what you can do. You don't need all of these different groups of participants. You can just think of participants like a cost resource. Okay, there's some error for some reason. We'll try to delete it again. Okay, there we go. And let's delete again. All right, so instead of participants CR1, we can just say participants. And we can make participants a cost resource, just like travel. So for example, you may have a travel resource and you really just have one item called travel, but you may have to fly to several different locations in the United States. And maybe you have, these once a month tasks where you have to fly to Los Angeles or New York or Florida. And when you do so, all you do is you assign the travel resource, and per task you enter a certain amount. So I don't need to enter the amount here. I could enter it back over in the focus group area. Now that's just one way to handle this. There are many ways to handle this, but I'll show you that in just a second. So that's what you could do to simplify participants. Oddly, I see it inserted this previous thing I had copied, so I'm going to delete that. Huh, that's odd. It inserted a couple of strange things, and I'm going to delete these. Hang on. Okay. Okay, the other thing I see is your facilitators, and it looks like it's clear that, or it seems to me that you have facilitator 1 AM, shift 1 through 5. I'm assuming that's the first 5 days, and then in conference room 1. You don't really want to assign a facilitator. Well, I suppose it could be okay to assign it to conference room 1, but the more specific you get, then you can't move them around, and sometimes you may need to assign them to a different conference room. So if you can leave out some of those very specific assignments, that might be better and make it more generic. If you do want to get specific about the time, and of course that's helpful just to keep this straight mentally, that's perfectly fine. But what I notice here is you've got facilitator 1, shift 1, 5, conference room 1, conference room 2, and then 3, but then you repeat it. So here's facilitator 1, shift 1, 5, conference room 3, 3, 3, so 2, 2, 2. You've got those repeating. And really, it's just one person. I'm assuming it's the same person, and you're hiring them for 5 days to come in the morning. If that's the case, you really only want one line item. Now, I may not understand how you're setting this up, and it may be more complex than, or more sophisticated than I understand. I just don't understand some of the of what you're doing, but it looks like you're repeating that same facilitator. It's as if, you know, you could have a resource listed by name. So let's say you had a resource named Bob Smith. It's as if you have Bob Smith, you know, a bunch of different times, because you assume, you know, here's Bob Smith on Monday, and here's Bob Smith on Tuesday, and here's Bob Smith when I'm going to need to use him Wednesday. That's what it appears to me that you're doing. And you don't want to do that. You just want to have Bob Smith one time and then assign him whenever you need him to however many tasks over in the Gantt chart view. So I'm going to clean this up and show you what I might do based on the way you've set this up. So first I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all of these different facilitators. And then I'll get rid of these, and maybe I'll just delete them so we've, well, but I'll insert some rows. Okay, so maybe if you want to keep the AM shift, I might say facilitator, and maybe I'll just do F facilitator AM, and I think I'll spell it out, facilitator AM, and I'll maybe call it facilitator, 1 AM, and then maybe what we'll do is do a facilitator 2 AM. Okay, assuming you want to have 2 different facilitators in the AM. Okay, this one will also be $30 an hour. Okay, I'll continue in adding the other facilitators, but so I don't waste time in the video, I'm just going to pause while I do it, and then I'll unpause the video. Okay, I'm back. So I've added the facilitators. I haven't added all of them. I have, you know, a group of 6 that can work in the morning, a group of 6 that can work in the afternoon, and then you would add another 6 that would be facilitator 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 evening. I also want to take a look at your conference rooms. You're doing them as a work resource, that's fine. I see that you have a $600 per day. It's actually $200 per 4 hours, which means it would be $50 an hour, and you might want to break it down that way, because I noticed that you had a separate task about room setup, and that's great. That's, you know, I wanted people to be creative and do different things here. But in that case, since you've got that, you might just do it by hour. So it works out to be $50 per hour, and we'll just set that up here. You can also copy this down by getting on that little crosshair, just like in Excel, and dragging it down. Okay, so we have most of the resources set up. I'll let you do the rest, but let me show you how they would work over in the Gantt chart. So I'm going to save and go back to the Gantt chart. Okay, and here we have the Gantt chart. I'm going to clear out these resources and we'll add them back in just a second. Before we do that, though, we really need to get this all set up. So you've got these sessions in 4-hour increments. That looks great. We really want to set up the predecessors, and one thing that happens is that these 3 sessions happen all at the same time, and then we have sessions 4, 5, and 6, etc. So let's set up the predecessor. So this one follows the start session, which would be a 1. This one follows the 3. This one follows 4, and then we have 5. But the idea, of course, is that these are start to start. Like, see this one. So, whoops. I'm going to click on this cell and get inside and do SS, which is the quick way to do a start to start. So the idea, and we'll see this in the Gantt chart, move these columns over a bit and look at the Gantt chart. Okay, here I'm moving over, and I can see these 3 tasks, which are all the session 1 tasks. Okay, so you can see those 3 tasks are start to start, which is what you want. They're all happening at the same time. So I want to keep going with the predecessors and do the same thing for the next 3, and then the next 3, and of course the entire project. So this next task follows task 6, and then that one follows 7, and then that one follows 8, and 9, and 10, and 11, and 12. All right. And so you can see the dates are changing too automatically, although these are actually all on the same day, but this will all change correctly when I add the SS. But the point is, I don't need to change any dates. I don't want to touch the dates. I let the durations and the predecessors, etc., do the work for me. Okay, so these three, sessions 4, 5, and 6, are sort of the afternoon sessions. So that means these need to have SS's. So that's a start to start with that one. And then that's a start to start as well. And you can see now I've got those three together. And then we have 9, 10, and 11. Those are also start to start. And you can see we've got the morning sessions, we've got the afternoon sessions, and we've got the evening sessions. And I'll try to expand it a little so we can see a little bit more. There's the morning, afternoon, and evening. Odd that these seem shorter, but they are the same hours and duration. Okay, so we've got that. You'd want to repeat that for the other days as well. Okay, I took a look at your calendar earlier too, and it looks like that was all set up correctly. After a quick glance, I'm looking here too. I'm just going to make sure that the durations are the same. Sometimes when I've been adjusting things, something happens. I see 14 hours here, and I think this was 1 hour. So we'll set that back up. All right, so it looks good. Now what I want to do is assign the resources. So I'm going to come over here. Whoops. And move this split over and start assigning the resources. So for the all room setup, I'm not sure what you want to do. This is a little different than what I had, but for sure you'd want to assign the conference room. So I'm going to hit the down arrow, and that would be all 3 conference rooms. But I won't put any personnel in there, and you don't have to either. Okay, so we've got that, and also, of course, for the all room takedown, that would be the same thing. All 3 conference rooms are still being used while we do that. Okay, so we got that. All right, so for session 1, 2, and 3, the idea, of course, is session 1 is probably conference room 1, session 2, conference room 2, and session 3, conference room 3. All 3 are being used simultaneously. So we'll do the first one, and we can do it here, but also if you want more detail, you can do it up in the Resource tab in the Assign Resource dialog box. So I'm going to come up here and assign it from here. So for session 1, we definitely need conference room 1, and we need facilitator, and this is a morning session, so facilitator 1 a.m., and we need facilitator 2 a.m., and we need to pay our participants. So they are down here, and I'm assigning them. And participants are a cost resource, so while I'm assigning them here, the reason I use this dialog box is I can enter the cost. So I don't have to have, each of my 10 participants. I can just have a generic thing called participants, and we just know that we have to have, maybe $500 in cash on hand ready to just give the participants. So, or maybe it's gift certificates or whatever we use. So really that's just a flat rate. So every session they have to pay 10 people $50, so that's 500. So I'm entering 500, and I'll hit enter, and then I'll go ahead and close. And this looks right too. We're renting the conference room for session 1 for 4 hours, so that's $200. Facilitator 1 is 4 hours, $30 times 420. Same thing with facilitator 2. And then there's participants. So I'm going to go ahead and assign and close, and we've got it. So we want to do the same thing for session 2. Now, when you hear it, you can come in. There is a little action tag here. You can hit the down arrow and take a look. And it says, increase the amount of work, but keep the same duration. Yeah, that's what we want to do. It should be on the right default. Okay, so increase the work means we have a bunch of resources, and each one of those resources is doing 4 hours of work. So this task isn't just 4 hours, it's 4 hours times each of the resources. Because the facilitator 1 and 2, they're each doing 4 hours. The conference room is being billed for 4 hours. So that's what this means. So you can just ignore it. It should be on that automatically, but you can also take a look and just make sure, and then close it up. All right, session